Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. We're going to get into it, into the inbox questions again today. I've had another influx of inbox questions come through, so I'm just sort of working through them. Some of them I'm going to bring questions together that really feel like they need to be asked together because they're kind of variations, shades on the same question, and then some of them are going to be a little bit more unique. But a little while ago, I stopped doing personal readings. And so usually when people contact me and say they want to have a personal reading, I let them know I'm not doing them. But I also ask, if there is a question that I can specifically put out there, and it's going to be for the collective. These are general readings, they're for the overall collective. So we know it's not going to resonate with everybody. And I say that at the beginning of every video, and then I usually say, and it shouldn't, it shouldn't resonate with everybody because these are being done for the collective. So if it resonates with you, then that's a sign you may want to take a look at some of the other videos. Maybe you even want to subscribe. What we're going to look at today is going to be, I'm just going to go ahead and read the email that came through. I'm not going to read the whole email, and I'm not going to identify. I typically don't have any interest in identifying you guys, or a lot of times you're confiding a story in me, and I appreciate that. And I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, but I do want to go ahead and make sure that I kind of explain where I'm coming from with this question, because it's coming from really just an interesting place, especially given the emails, or I'm sorry, the reading that we just had. I think it was yesterday's reading. Maybe it was the day before, but there was this feeling, maybe it was the day before. There was this feeling of, I made a comment that some of these divine masculines would maybe take a long time to make it back, or could, like myself included, might not become, not, we might not hear from them again. I don't expect to hear from my person again, for example. And it's interesting because somebody made the comment a few days earlier, and I had read the email and looked at it, but it was, when you feel so sure of the connection and the chemistry, how do you move forward if they never communicate again? How can you have a fulfilling relationship with someone else? How do you stop obsessing when all you ever wanted was to be happy with someone who gets you your whole life? And um, I feel like we're going to go ahead and do that one, because I feel like even though this is an email that comes from an individual, it does such a great job of summing up a question that I think a lot of us have. And so we're going to go ahead and get that energetic backdrop to start us off, and just kind of see what's in this energy for today. What should we be taking the rest of this reading with? This is that context that it gives us a little bit of context for the rest of the reading. So we have the Eight of Swords and the Six of Wands. Both of those came up and want to be used in this reading here. So the Six of Wands and the Eight of Swords, there's a feeling of, this is everything. There's a lot of potential in everything, and yet I'm afraid of it and not willing to necessarily move forward and take advantage of it, not necessarily willing to move forward and grab it. So there is success to be had, but there is some fear around that success. Interesting. So that's in today's energy. It's in the energy between the two of you, but it's also going to be, something that's kind of in the background and impacting both of you. I think that this is something that kind of holds you back, even though there's a positivity deep within the energy that's hard to ignore. That's interesting. That's really, like, hard to ignore is the words that wanted to come out. So we have the Wheel. There's energetic shift happening here. There's energetic change that's happening. But with the King of Crystals also coming out here in the reverse, you're not able to access the full range of this change. So there's change energy here, and it's just like these two energies work against one another. You have the Six of Wands, which is saying, okay, things can actually be victorious, things can go well. Then you have the Eight of Swords saying, not so fast, and it's a very constricting sort of energy. Here we have something kind of similar going on because you have the Wheel, which is enabling a change that is not even coming from your own energy necessarily, neither of your energies. It's coming, sort of in the universal energy. But here with the King of Crystals, it really kind of holds it back. This is that limitation. It's that energy of emotional limitation and not being willing to get engaged on an emotional level. So let's see, we got a couple of them that popped out there. We definitely need the Justice card in reverse and the Two of Acorns. We also have the Nine of Acorns that's come out. And I think that's all we're going to use there. Yeah, I never know how many of the cards that come out I'm actually going to use. It's just I go until they tell me to stop. So with the Justice card here in the reverse, this is kind of an awareness of this conflict that's happening over here. There's a lot of conflict energy in that. With the Two of Acorns, this is knowing that there's a potential to move forward and resolve what has been difficult to resolve between the two of you. We've been seeing this come out in readings here lately. Just that there's a lot less in the way. There's something that has changed in the way that your person thinks about things, that something that was happening with their values when you came to them. They were trying to kind of shove it in the back and not think about it. You brought it back to them. You brought it back up to them. They've been forced to kind of deal with it. They have these reservations about dealing with it, a lot of concerns about it, don't really want to dig in and deal with it very much. But there is also some progress that I feel like with this Two of Acorns has already been made. This is interesting because I feel like we're also this is really, it's good to know this in the background for the reading that for the reading that we're doing today, for the question that we're asking. Because I mean, really the question is, how do you move forward given this situation where you know that on a practical level you may not hear from them again, or you may really just not hear from them in the near future, and yet things feel like they're not over. You can tell with them, they feel like things have never been resolved, but that they could be. There's constant tension on the line. That's something to note about this. But the question was, one of the things that this person said was, how do you stop obsessing when all you ever wanted to be was to be happy with someone who gets you your whole life? And there's no question about that. It's difficult to turn these thoughts off. It's difficult to focus on something else. Even if you've got all these things that are going reasonably in line in your life, and this is the piece that seems to have gone off the rails. And for a lot of you, that's the sort of energy that I hear. We've got the Ace of Shells that fell face up but in reverse. And then we've got the Three of Feathers. So feathers are air energy here, like swords. And shells are water energy. And I don't think I explained, crystals are earth energy and acorns are fire energy. And so this is, this Nine of Acorns, this Two of Acorns, that's like the Nine of Wands and the Two of Wands. And so we see these come up relatively often with similar meanings. And so here there's that realization of pain, that memory of pain. That's like a Three of Swords in the upright. Now that is, it's a card of sadness and pain, but it's very present. It's a feeling of feeling like that pain is back in the now, even though it isn't in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases, it's like reliving something that has already happened. But it's something that has caused a constriction. Again, we see so much constriction in today's energy. So much, yes, you can, but so much you may not see that energy flowing. And the Ace of Shells in reverse is exactly that. It's energy that is not flowing. So that's energy that seems to not want to be able to move forward, or not to be able to move forward. And there's definitely that energy of movement over here, but with all the feeling of constriction that feels like it's there as well. It's just really difficult for it to move forward, and there's not a sense of confidence there with that. So this is like an emotional security sort of feeling. The Nine of Crystals in the upright would be a feeling of emotional security, but in the reverse, it's a feeling of not really necessarily having that emotional security. And so that's kind of what's in this emotional backdrop. It's in the background of today's energy, and it's just something for us to be thinking about as we're asking the question, what do you do to move forward? Like, how do you move forward if they aren't going to communicate again? What do you do when you know that that chemistry is so tight that there's, you know, it's not completely done. You know, it's not over. Let's take a look, because typically what we do is we get into your lesson here in this last one. I think we're still going to do that. That's going to be your practical information area for you to focus on. What we're going to look at here first is more for you to consider. So basically, what else you need to know about this situation and how it feels, you know, with regard to, there's this feeling of just energy that won't quit, you know, obsessive energy, obsessive memories, thinking. It's a very strong energy that's between the two of you. Like I said, there's constantly always tension on that line, and that's both of you. That's you know, I was thinking over here that it was already starting to kind of answer some things about this question. I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, we've got the Hanged Man that has come up here in reverse. And what we can say is that feeling of things not being complete, that feeling of things not being done yet, is very, very real, because it's very, very legitimate. But the thing about this is that some of it could be resolved. Some of it needs to be resolved internally inside of each of you. So remember how we talk about there being this need for a reconciliation within each of yourselves, and then a reconciliation between the two of you that would have to be possible before a reunion could be considered. Well, this Hanged Man talks a little bit about that, that perspective that would have to change, something that would have to be different, and this is that, I feel like it is the specifically, it's the reconciliation that happens in between the two of you individually, and it has to do with this message that we keep seeing come out with the 10 of acorns. So with the 10 of acorns, one of the things that we've seen happen is there's this feeling of a burden. That's like the 10 of wands, and so it is a feeling of burden. It's a feeling of feeling responsible for something, and indeed in the bottom it actually says responsibility. Here in the reverse, though, it's really overwhelming. It's too much. It's more responsibility than you should be carrying, because some of this just isn't your responsibility. But the thing is, you know, sometimes it's possible to not be able to let that go. So you are not necessarily responsible for all of the circumstances around someone's safety, but if that person is important to you, then it's something that you're not necessarily going to be able to drop. You're still going to feel strongly about it. You're still going to feel that little bit of a sense of responsibility, or in some cases, a lot of a sense of responsibility, depending on the relationship. You know, if you have kids, then this is something that then you could probably relate to it reasonably well. It's that sense of, I can't be responsible for everything that happens to you, but I feel incredibly responsible for your overall experience. And so there are going to be some things in here that you will be able to drop and you will need to drop, but it has also to do with, if you go back and you look at the video about the meditation mantras, it's that first mantra, that one that I meditate on every day. I mean, I guess I meditate on all of them every day, but the very first one right out of the gate is always about attachment. And it's about releasing attachments and expectations and assumptions about people and situations and their outcomes. And this is that kind of energy, being able to let go of that. That's part of the perspective that has to happen here. So even knowing that there is some unfinished unfinished business there that has to happen, being able to let go of that. We have the page of acorns here, which is interesting. It's super interesting energy because I saw it and I was like, well, it's part of this. It's definitely it's part of this reading, but it's interesting what it represents because it's curiosity, and it's like it's telling you to remain curious, assume that you don't know all of the information that you're going to ultimately need to know, and the time is going to fall away. At some point, the time is going to fall away. You're going to make some sort of realization and you're going to say, oh my goodness, there's all of this like time of consternation that you're going to realize you never needed to spend. It's got that kind of feel to it. I don't know how to describe it any better than that. But it's like the words that actually come to my mind are stay curious, my friend. So we've got the Five of Shells here. The Five of Shells, that's like the Five of Cups. Now it's in the upright. There is a feeling of shame and of just not having been able to get this right. I made a mistake. I made a mistake. That's what this Five of Shells sounds like, or what it feels like to me. We also have the Five of Feathers. I went down the wrong path and I worked too hard to get down that wrong path. So this is like we just recently did a messages from your divine masculine. You know, it was a couple of days ago, I guess, and we did one where we were kind of, what would they, it's in some ways it's like, what would they tell you? And here it's like, I've made a mistake and I've gone down the wrong path. There's a need for you to understand that, but they feel like they can't say it. This is really, this is interesting because these are kind of the things that are between the two of you that are making it so difficult for them to communicate. But there are also some things that this resolution, the very top card, is that main idea. And with this, I mean, with the main idea over here with the general energy, this is the main idea of conflict. It's entirely possible, but there's some getting in your own way kind of energy. And that's energy that's between you, but it's also kind of on this individual basis. And then here we have that energy of something being unresolved and something that has to be resolved. It has to be resolved before, and it's within the two of you. It's that reconciliation on the personal basis. And so this shame and guilt, this feels like your person's shame and guilt that they wish they could somehow admit to you without having to actually say it. It's not so much that they need to admit it to you. It's more that they need to be able to internalize it and get right with it within themselves. They haven't forgiven themselves. They need to watch my video on the mantras, because that second mantra is all about forgiveness. And the first person you forgive in that one is yourself. All right, let's see here. Okay, the Ace of Crystals. So that is this is very, very slow movement, but it is moving. It feels like a reassurance that, you know, as this person mentioned, they know there's a little voice that tells them that this situation is not done. And this is confirming that and saying, absolutely, it is not done. It is moving forward, but it really is moving forward incredibly slowly. With the King of Shells here, we have more of an aversion to taking risks. It really is kind of a risk-averse sort of approach to things. And with the Ace of Shells here, or I'm sorry, the Ace of Crystals here, this is saying things are just very slow to progress, slow to move forward, and it only happens with a lot of thought and caution. There's a lot of caution. But what I'm seeing here is okay, so the main idea that comes out here and kind of the answer to this question, what I'm feeling is this sense of there's not a need. How can I put this? It's not over between the two of you, okay? But you need to be able to move forward as if it is completely over. You need to be able to let go of it, completely let go of it. in order to move forward, and that's part of the lesson that you're here to learn. And I am done with this pile. Usually we get more per question, but that was it. That was the main idea that wanted to come out, and it's bears kind of restating it. I'm going to try and say it again, but basically it is, you are going to have to deal with this. This situation is not going to go away. This is not a situation where you will never see this person again and you will never deal with this. This is something that is going to recur. It is going to return. It is not over yet. But you have, more importantly, you both have this internal reconciliation piece that has to happen. Even though there is this pull, the two of you coming back toward one another, you need to move forward as if there isn't. Okay, so that was the main message that wanted to come out there, but it makes me wonder, like, how does your person navigate that? How do they feel about that? Because they're stuck in there learning their own lessons. Maybe that's what we'll look at when we get into the extended, because this is telling you, kind of your instructions for going forward. We need to also get their side of this, I think. So we'll do that when we get into the extended. But first, let's look at those, the practical information for you, what you need to know, and where your focus needs to be. So I think you've gotten some degree of that answer already, but this is always great because we can just never get enough of the healing that is coming your way and the lessons that are coming your way. Because a lot of times you end up seeing the same lessons more than once, because you learn them partially, but maybe not the whole thing. So we've got the High Priestess. We've seen a lot of this High Priestess in reverse here, and this has to do with messages that are coming to you, secrets that are coming out, and again, not necessarily secrets, but things that feel like mysteries. It's going to knock you on your off your feet. I'll say that. There is something that you're going to run across, and I don't think it's about your person, but I think it's something that you're going to run across that's going to cause you to, it's going to give you a sense of, like a sense of meaning and something to rally behind. We know that you've been moving towards something that's going to set your soul on fire, and I think this might be something that kind of moves you in that direction. We also have the World card. You're hitting the end of some kind of cycle. Hitting the end of some kind of cycle, but not necessarily, it's like a cycle within a cycle. So you still have larger cycles that are continuing. You've got the Hermit card in reverse here because you've gone after some answers and some solutions, but unfortunately, it's like you stopped before you got to the end of it. So we've got the Seven of Acorns, which is like the Seven of Fire. It's the Seven of Wands, but it's in reverse. This was like losing your nerve before you got to the final solution as you were going through this. I visualize you walking through a cave, but it's dark and kind of scary in there, and you're starting to think about bugs and things, and finally losing your nerve, but shortly before you get to the place that you needed to get to in order to see what you had come to see. I got a little bit of a sense of that. So there's a feeling that you got to go a little bit farther, and maybe, do something to either get over the bugs or protect yourself against, those types of things, whatever that means. Obviously, it's not going to be literal. We've got the Seven of Feathers here. So this is fear that, that's a fear that it necessitates shadow work. So this is something that you've got a lack of trust in yourself, something within yourself that you have kind of a hard time with. It's having a hard time trusting yourself. And so it's like doing inner child work. That's kind of what needs to be done here with this Seven of Feathers. So what it amounts to is giving yourself the thing that you were lacking at some point much earlier on, and it's going to be relevant to part of what this person has brought up for you, which in a lot of cases has been around betrayal, abandonment, and rejection. Those are the big three things that have come up, and so as you're reflecting on those pains that came from either your person or before, look deeply before that. Look for the earliest memories of that you can find, and that's where you want to go in and start doing the inner child work. Look up inner child work if you're not familiar with it. But it's all about making things better for yourself in ways that nobody did the first time. So whether it's an issue with a caretaker or just some sort of unpleasant, unnecessary event, it's something that you can go back and kind of do some work with, but it requires that because it's how you're going to find and establish that trust in yourself. So you've got the Six of Feathers here, Six of Feathers in reverse, which is kind of saying, and what I'm feeling from this card is even when things kind of slow down, you're not necessarily able to make the best benefit or take the best benefit of that slowed down energy. So focus on that, because this is something that I think you'll actually be very good at if you set your mind to it. When you start to get a moment to meditate on your issues and consider what the direction that you want to go, actually take that moment and don't allow yourself to fill it with other things. You've got the King of Acorns. So this is the Fire King. This is the King of Wands here in reverse. Watch out for a tendency for you to kind of strong arm the situation because you're so darn good at it. Basically, you're really good at taking a situation and kind of turning it into what it needs to be turned into. But you're being discouraged from doing that at this time. This is an admonition to just kind of roll with it. So we're going to get into you a little bit more in this extended too. I think we're going to dig into both you and your person. And it's just like we need a little bit more detail about this, because the question was, essentially, how do you move forward if you don't hear back from this person? And the deal is you're going to deal with this person again. Like you're going to have to deal with this. But beforehand, you really both want to have had this reconciliation happen internally within you. And so we're going to look into both sides of that, both you and your person. And so for you, with the Page of Feathers here, this is okay. It's like there's so much weird, sticky fear in here that it's not common for you. So what's interesting here is it's like a type of fear that you don't usually associate with yourself. And I felt it as soon as the Strength card came out in the reverse. It's exactly what you're not known for. This is not feeling like the Rock. This is feeling like just having a hard time not being afraid of your shadow, and maybe it's a flash, but it's something to focus on. When you see it, you want to grab that and just kind of pull it up by the root to understand what it is. And that's going to be this inner child work. So it's like that's part of what you're getting as far as your lessons. We're definitely going to look a little bit farther into this. We're also going to look into what's happening with your person in this situation and kind of their side of how they're feeling about things right now, especially given how slowly they're moving and how much resistance there is. It's like, yes, there's definitely potential for success here, but there's so much push against it. That's really in the energy for today. So good to know that. But let's take that opportunity while the energy is like that and there is so much conflict. It's like bubbling right up at the surface. So we're going to look at it. So that's what we're going to do when we go into the extended. I look forward to seeing you there. If you want to go there, the link to the extended is down below this video, down in the text. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next reading.